I go where everyone is friendly. I go where I am known. I go where I'm not an illusion. Where I go, I've noticed. Everybody goes there. Everybody goes there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Around Town TV Live. My name is Carla Berlin. What if the best leaders aren't the smartest leaders in the room, but rather the most human? Whether you're a business leader, owner, executive, manager, entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, or simply somebody who would like to make a bigger impact in the world, you're not going to want to miss this conversation tonight. Tonight, we welcome internationally recognized leadership expert, University of Minnesota professor, and author Luis Moreno, and we're going to be discussing his new book, Today's Inspired Leaders Stories of Impact, Community, and Legacy, and explore why empathy, emotional intelligence, and authentic relationships are redefining leadership in today's world. Please welcome Luis Moreno. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you for the invitation. Excited to be here for our second time together.
It is our second time, and we were talking about that offline. So it was just a little over 5 years ago. And the reason I remember that is when I had Luis on the show, I had my mother was in hospice at the time, and I literally was doing the show by her bedside. And because of that, that's how I kind of remembered the time frame. And I'm going to just double check. And if you want, feel free to go ahead and share it from LinkedIn if you
Yes.
haven't already.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to just make sure we are live.
Yes.
I think
All
we
right.
are. Here. Let's, huh. I don't know
So,
if we are or not. Hmm.
oops.
Oh, yep, we are. We're live. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because we go live to so many different places at once, and with software and live stream, so many things can go wrong. Luis, as we get into the show tonight, because yes, you were on a little over 5 years ago, and we started working together about 6 years ago. But for those who may not remember or not, they might recognize you. You've got an incredibly impressive background. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your history and background and what inspired you on this leadership journey.
Yes, yes. By the way, I'm trying to
Oh,
share it on my LinkedIn
oh,
and
oh
Cambodia,
no,
but
you do that
we'll
first.
figure
You
it out.
share it first, and then we'll get
Uh,
into it. Yep, we've
let's
got
see.
time. Yeah.
I'm not seeing where how I can
On LinkedIn, did you go
share it.
to my profile?
Yes.
Okay, and then
Publish.
did you refresh it? And then it
Yes, no,
should.
because I can see you and you going live, but
Oh,
I
but you
still
don't know
give
how to
you the
share it.
option to share it.
So
But
right
hopefully,
here below, you'll see view
okay,
event, and you see the little flippy thingy.
let's see. Okay, just a
Let's see if
second.
I can bring this in. Like
Okay.
below, like where these things are, that little flip.
Oh, no, I think I have it here.
You do.
So
Okay. Because then you can just share it. Thank you for doing that too. So all your viewers can catch it.
perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
right here. Perfect. Join us live now. All right, very good. Here we go. All
It's
right,
that's a
just share.
definition of multitasking.
Yes. Okay. Yeah,
Fantastic. Well, and
share
that was
now.
perfect because it gave people a chance to jump on. Um,
Yes.
so if you wouldn't mind, because this was about 5 years ago when you were on the show last time, sharing with our viewers who may not be familiar with you a little bit about your history, your background, and what inspired you on this whole leadership journey.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Carol, for the invitation, for the interest in the topic. So I was actually, I did my MBA at the Minnesota Carlson School, and when I finished, I was fortunate to get to work for seven Fortune 500 companies. So I enjoy the time working in these, some of the largest companies in the world. And
Yep.
I was, observing leadership, the various leadership that I worked under, the various leaders, and there were leaders that I was very inspired by, and I wanted to be like. And there were some other leaders that I didn't really think that had abilities that I thought were necessary to be a great leader, right? And
Right.
that caused a lot of curiosity to me, for me. And I always thought, wow, what is leadership? What does it take to be a great
Mhm.
leader? And I started to study, right? Study leadership. I read a lot of books, watched a lot of videos, and registered for classes. I did, multiple certifications, and I got so passionate about it that I ended up, teaching at the
Mhm.
university and studying because I really wanted to know, more and more about leadership. And so today, my line is I train leaders to be more human, because one of the things that I discovered was that,
Mhm.
back at the time and, a few decades ago, there was so much focused on financial results, right? ROI, return on
Yes.
investment, like ROI, 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 financial results at all cost. And and people were okay with that. And so Monday morning, right, you would
Mhm.
get people excited by telling them, hey, we're going to grow by 10%, we're going to grow by 20%, and we're like, yeah, let's go do it. But the new generation of employees now, with major global events like, we have
Mhm.
wars, right, in
Right.
Ukraine, in Russia, in Iran, in other places. We have earthquakes in Venezuela, we have COVID, we have all these major things that are going on, where these newer generations are having more more compassion and more empathy, and they're connecting more with things that are happening. So whereas now they need, they've learned over the past few years
Mhm.
that life is short, and that
Mhm.
happiness is important. It's important to be happy. And
Mhm.
they've been learning more to live a life of purpose. They've learned
Mhm.
about self-love, right? So we need to
Uh-huh.
love ourselves. We need to be empathetic and compassionate with ourselves and with others. So this whole thing about financial results only, and financials over everything, is
Right.
losing traction. So with the newer
Good.
generation, they're less likely to be motivated just by, hey, we have a
Mhm.
bonus for you, compensation. And although
Right.
compensation is important, will always be, it's no longer the one thing, right? There are other components of what kind of company am I working for, what kind of product or
Mhm.
service does the company produce and sell, where are the products made, what kind of values that my company have, what kind of leadership am I under,
Right.
who's the leader that I'm working for, and how do I feel, right? How do I
Right.
feel in this company? So that got me super motivated. And so today I'm teaching, in multiple schools,
Right.
the topic. And I just, we'll talk about it tonight, but I just
Right.
participated in a book where I share some of my perspectives on leadership in a recent book that was just published.
Well, and not only that, I know your emotional intelligence has also been a big topic you talk on. You made mention of something, and we talked a lot about this offline the other day. I guess that was probably yesterday when we were doing the test, but feels like a week ago because you and I can just get going on this. We're both so passionate about leadership. But I had the pleasure of being flown to a national company. And for opportunities, a lot of people know that I do a lot of work on air and a lot of guest hosting. And I think I shared with you, I was so impressed with their leadership. Now,
Mhm.
this company is driven by sales because that's how it thrives.
Yes.
However, one of the things I loved about this is it wasn't just, I've been in situations where I've worked for and done where it's just numbers, which is
Mhm.
important, but the
Yes.
leadership piece of it and the development, I left thinking not only are these people the best at what they do and knowledgeable, but they're all about development of
Yeah.
each of us becoming our best because you
Yes.
can always get better and you can always be better at your craft and what you're doing. And yes,
Mhm.
especially when you're in sales. But I've
Mhm.
also been in situations, and thank goodness that not at this place, I left just feeling like, wow. I've been in situations where it was only driven by numbers, and that's
Mhm.
not leadership, just numbers, because
Right.
you need to be developed and taught how to do that. So, anyway, and I know that's what you do every single day with all these
Yeah.
kids. Why did you start teaching leadership?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm going to answer that question by going back to your own comments, in that, look at the difference, how it feels, right? When you are with great leadership and, poor leadership, there is a difference. And, one of
Mhm.
the, when you are the leader, when you are leading a company, when you're the head of a company, there's always tension because, you have different sets of stakeholders, right? I mean, you
Right.
have, the shareholders, want
Right.
value, they want gains, they want, financial results, and ultimately they are the owners, right? So I mean, if you
Right.
don't produce the value, you're not going to be there for very long, and that, you got to do that. But I think what they change is that, there used to be this thinking of, wow, let's get up, let's get that value however, we can do it, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter. And I think it was possible to do it in the past, because there was no, before the internet, before social media, before
Yes.
the channels of communication, it was hard for people. So it was harder to get access to information. So some of these
Mhm.
things were kind of in the dark, right? It was, people were not knowing what was happening, right? So people were able to, some leaders were able to achieve fantastic financial results by operating in ways that the public, the access, the employees really didn't know about. But, since
Ah,
the invention of the internet, social
yeah.
media, Google, right,
Mhm.
artificial intelligence, right,
Right.
chat,
All the
GPT and all of
AI tools,
it's
correct.
making things more difficult because, for example, right now, employees, like, if you're a leader and you're telling people, you're going out on the website and saying, oh, we really care
Mhm.
about leadership. We care about this, we care about that. But then the employee now, so in the past, the employee was kind of head down working on my computer. So the
Mhm.
leaders of my organization are speaking to the community, to the public, and they're saying things, and I don't know because I'm head down, just kind of working on my
Mhm.
things. I really don't know. But in the new times, the new generation of employees, they want to be in tune. They want to know, okay, so what are my leaders saying internally and
Mhm.
externally? So
Mhm.
they are going to the website and they're reading, okay, what are my leaders saying to the community and how does it match? How does it compare to the reality that I am living here inside the organization? So, for example, right, you have
Mhm.
an organization that is saying on the website, yeah, because leadership development is the number one thing for us, it's really important for us. The employee can be thinking, well, let me think about this. So I was a high performing employee because of the great work that I was doing. I was promoted to be a leader of people. So I now have a
Mhm.
team that reports to me. But I've been a leader of people for 3 years and I haven't gotten any leadership development
Yes.
training, right? So then what I am reading on the website is not matching the reality that I'm living, right? And then
Good
and then
point.
there are other things like, for example, in the past also, people, you need a job, you need you have bills to pay, right? You
Oh,
have a
right.
mortgage, you have, or you have bills to pay, you got to buy food, and you really needed a job, so you would get a job and just kind of focused on, you were given these tasks to do, and you would just kind of limit yourself to do your tasks, and that's it. But now the way that people are living, because of they're looking for this sense of connection of like, I want to belong to this company, and this process of belonging includes, how do I feel about what this
Mhm.
company does? So, okay, here I am in finance, so my job is to, I'm in accounting, and my job is to do, the balance sheet and all that. That's good. But okay, what is this company that I'm working for? What does it do? What are the products and services that it offers? If it's a manufacturing company that makes a certain product, in
Right.
what country, where are the plants and manufacturing plants? In what
Mhm.
countries are they? What are the conditions of the workers, right?
Right.
Even the use of water, use of
True.
energy, is my company being responsible to the planet? Because
Mhm.
it matters how I feel about it. So interestingly
Mhm.
enough, for example, I'm seeing this more and more, where I have folks that come to me and tell me, I love my job, I love my function, I love my boss, but I am having a conflict of interest. I'm having I'm feeling bad
Mm.
here because
Mhm.
the work that I am doing is helping this company that is, X, for example. Maybe I work in financial services, and
Right.
the bank that I work for is, offering products for the community, that I'm thinking, well, is that financial product helping my community or getting my community, for example, in debt, right? So
Oh,
now,
right,
even
right.
though I feel I love my job, I like my accounting job, the job that I do,
Mhm.
I don't feel as comfortable with the work that my company
Mhm.
does and the effect that it has in the community, because the newer generations are more interested in the satisfaction and the gratification that they receive by being involved and being connected with an organization
Mhm.
whose work is impacting the communities positively, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
in all kinds of things. For example, maybe if I work at NASA, if I work at a company that produces rockets and is
Mhm.
sending rockets to to the space, and
Mhm.
that is producing new knowledge and advancing technology and all that, I feel good about it because I am involved with an
Mhm.
organization that is helping to advance knowledge, right? And maybe I work at a
Right.
university, and I feel good about the fact that my organization is helping to advance, right? So anyway, that's
Right.
how that's a very long answer to your question. Your question was how I got to this and how I started training for it.
Well, and one of the things I noticed to your point, Luis, is even taking it one step further. So the products, the services, whatever an organization is doing or selling, I have noticed the customers, not only the employees, but the customers, the
Yeah,
consumer wants
yeah,
to feel a part of it.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes. So different, both employees and the customers, are going to have different opinions, different beliefs, things that are in
yes,
their niche. And usually that's why the customer will buy or be a part of the organization, and employees can decide to be a part of it or leave. But I have noticed if they really not only believe in what's going on, but are feel a part of it,
yes,
are part that, and a lot of that is because of the leadership and the way it's
yes.
done. For example, the company I was just referring to a little while ago, it was really the southern hospitality by
Mhm.
every single person of a person like me coming in, of the welcoming nature, but a lot of similar beliefs of what we're doing, the impacts of what the company's doing, and the integrity and credibility and the quality and all of that. But so it even goes deeper sometimes.
Totally. Thank you for bringing that up. In fact, to connect what you just said from the
Mhm.
customer, let's talk about the customer perspective. I also teach at customer.
Yes.
I teach marketing and customer insights at the university. So there is a change in that. So, for example, when I was a child
Yep.
and I wanted to buy a pair of shoes, I just look at shoes that I like the design, the colors, and stuff, and hey, I love those, and I would buy them. That was a very simple decision to make, right? Do I like
Mhm.
how those shoes look? Uh,
Right.
but the process today for for our children, the new generation, when they're buying a pair of shoes, the decision making process is more complex because now it's no
Right.
longer whether I like how the shoes look or what are the colors, but there are other things in consideration, right? So, for
Right.
example, who is what company am I buying these
Mhm.
shoes from, and what does that company represent? And in fact, for example, if a company's leadership has been in the news and they've made certain comments or they've supported a certain organization that supports certain values that are
Mhm.
against or in
Yeah.
favor of something, I say the shoes may look good, but I am not going to buy them because they are made by a company whose leadership support this X thing. Maybe,
Mhm.
for example, if I am part of a LGBTQ movement, for example, just to
Right.
say an
Right.
example, what hey, this restaurant makes wonderful food, but the owners of this restaurant have made comments that are
Mhm.
against this community that I am an ally
Mhm.
for, right, or a
Mhm.
member of. And the other
Mhm.
part is that there is a new thing that didn't exist when I was young. Is that now we've become so in with everything that is happening in the world, and people have different ideologies and who
Right. And
supports what,
beliefs.
right, beliefs and values.
Mhm.
So more and more people are wanting to go out into the community, into the street, and to their day, and they want to find ways to communicate how they feel about certain things.
Mhm.
So now
And connect.
people may buy a certain car because
Mhm.
that car may, so in the past, for example, you buy a certain brand of car because you wanted to say, hey, I have a certain status, right? I'm part of a certain
Right.
socioeconomic. That always will be the case, but there are now things like well, I want to share that I am I'm part of this movement to take care of the planet, to be environmentally friendly and conscious. Then I buy an electric car, for example, and I want to
Mhm.
buy a brand that there's no doubt to anybody that that car is an electric car, because you have some cars that exist. There is a model of car that you can buy it, the gasoline version, and you can also buy the electric version. So if you are driving the car, some people may not
Hybrid.
know which version you have. You have a
Right.
gasoline, you have the electric, but there are other cars that only exist electric, right? So there's no way
Right.
to have that
Or
car.
gas.
You would have to have it,
Mhm.
retrofitted. But so some people will buy a certain
Mhm.
car because they want to make sure that when they are
Mhm.
driving, anybody who sees them knows that they are driving an electric car, right? So
Mhm.
this is now very important, because as a company, right? If you're a company, and now we have a marketing class now, right? So as a
Yeah.
company, right now, you need to understand through marketing
Mhm.
research and all that, talking to your customers, is how is your brand perceived by other people? How do
Mhm.
they see the leader? What's the leadership, and what's the message that your brand sends, and how people experience your brand? Because that
Mhm.
will determine whether people want to be seen associated with your brand, right? If they want to
Mhm.
carry a certain bag, if they want to be seen entering a certain restaurant, if they want to be seen driving a certain car, it depends how they feel about associating themselves with those. So the
Yeah.
connection here is, we went on the customer tangent, because you're talking about customer, but if we
Right.
bring that into the workplace with leadership, is that what if I went to my friends and relatives, and they ask me, where do you work? And I say, I work at this company X. And they're like, oh, wow, really? You work there? And yeah. And like, how do you feel working for that company? Well, I'm not going to feel, I want to, more and more people are
Mm.
wanting to work in companies whose brand or brands that stand for something. So what they want is that they say, when somebody asks them, where do you work? They say, oh, I work at company X. Oh, wow, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Mhm.
That's so great that you work at that company. Because they say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be your customer. So, I here
Right.
the
Right.
shoes that I'm wearing, I bought one of your computers or something like that, because then they're excited. It's like I part of my motivation to work at this company is that every time that I mention to anyone that I work at this company, I see positive reactions in
Mhm.
people. People think
Mhm.
that it is a good company to be in, then I
Mhm.
want to be in this company, right? So it matters. In the past,
Right.
it's like,
Right.
what the hell? I don't care. I have a wonderful 401k. I'm going to have a great pension. So whether you like it or not, I don't care. I work for this petroleum company that just did a spill and damaged all this lake. You don't like it? Well, I make a lot of money. I'm an engineer. I
Yeah.
make a big compensation. So whether you like it or not, I don't have anything to do with that. That was in the past. Today is like I do care how people feel about the organization that I am, associated with.
Well, and I have my next question is a loaded one, but really goes for those just tuning in. We are so excited to have with us Luis Moreno, who is an executive trainer. He is an author and he's a leadership expert. And that pertains to my next question. What makes a great leader?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, we go back to the point on, are you a great leader because you grow a company? Because many people can grow companies. I mean, well, growing a company is not easy, but many people can do
No,
it.
no, it's not.
But the
Yeah.
question is whether you can do it while because you can grow a company and leave the bodies on the trail, right? It's like you
Right.
just
We always say they know where they've been there so long, they know where the bodies are buried.
right,
Yeah.
right. Growth at any cost. That can be done, but to me, a great leader is being able to do that. Because let me clarify something here for everyone watching us, either right now live or in
Mhm.
on demand. Is that human-centered leadership, which is the area of leadership that I've specialized in, is not
Right.
about not having financial results or not having strong financial results. It
Right.
is about having financial results while also being human centered, which means to
Mhm.
to also focus on people. So great leaders have characteristics, have human characteristics that they have, so they have a strategic vision. They can
Mhm.
put, they're going to look at the SWOT analysis, right? So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and all of that. And then they are visionary, that they can look at, okay, what are the opportunities from a strategic business standpoint. And then as they are looking to make decisions, one of the important factors that they will have on the negotiation table
Mhm.
is people, right? Because
Mhm.
it is easy. Oh, we need to cut costs. Well, close some plants, lay off some people and stuff.
Right.
That's easy to do. Well, it's not very easy, but a lot of people can do that. But when, to me, great leaders are the folks that can also look at, okay, how can I grow the company and have great
And
financial
and
results?
not have to lay anyone off. Yeah.
Well, and and some
Yeah.
people would argue that's not possible, but it's all about,
Right,
because
right.
even in the instances, for example, let's talk about that. We all know,
Yes.
anybody who has worked in business knows that there are instances where you can't continue to have a certain employee. It can be for performance costs, for whatever
Correct.
reason. It doesn't make more sense. It no longer makes sense to continue to have someone on the team. Yeah, that happens all the time for all organizations. But
Absolutely. Yep.
it's also how you go about it, right? Because the bad
Thank you.
leaders, right? That it's like a vector. You can be a great leader, then like an okay leader, a bad leader, and then you can be a leader that that have like a toxic characteristics, where you get to a point where someone, a really bad leader, can enjoy inflicting, so it's like, oh, what, it's time to fire some people.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
let's
time
go
to
ahead
give them
and
their
do it.
pink slip. Woo,
Yeah, let's
yeah,
have some fun here, right?
yeah, I
Firing
have
some people.
seen that,
Well, I mean, I've seen it too, over
and
20
it
years in
breaks my
corporate
heart because they
America.
forget that these are human beings that are putting food on the table.
Exactly. And it's about
Yeah,
understanding, wow,
and I
so for
get it too, if they're not performing, I totally get it.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can, for example, there are instances where you have someone in your team and the person, you have a agreed objective and the person just can hit him, but it may be because the person is in the wrong assignment, the person doesn't have the right preparation for X, Y, for so many
Right, haven't
reasons.
been
But
onboarded or
right. So
developed
how do
correctly.
you, what is that conversation, right? In terms of,
Mhm.
what is the future? Because that person, you could redirect a person, right, where the person can no longer be in one assignment and the person could still be grateful to you because the way that you went about it with dignity, with humanity,
Mhm.
with compassion, and you support
Mhm.
that person to find, because the success, the success for that person doesn't have to be in that job necessarily. What they really
Mhm.
want is a career opportunity where they can sustain, themselves and their family. So it doesn't have to be that one, but you can help to motivate them and all that. Also, one I want to, what
Yep.
we're talking about also touches on one very important point, because leadership is like many things in life that is evolving, and there are important changes. One of the important changes that is coming up in a lot of conversations and research is feedback. It's like a
Yes.
performance feedback, performance
Performance
yeah.
reviews
So
and
in the
yes.
past, right, when I started in corporate America, performance review was an opportunity for your leader to tell you what, like, it's like you're not good at it. Maybe they'll put a comment here, hey, you're doing great here, but let me tell you about the things where, right? Because the
Right.
thought was like, oh, let's stretch people, and tough
Mhm.
love, tough love, tough love. But eventually, what organizations are experiencing today with the newer generation is you have a big turnover. Why? Because in the past was like, oh yeah, okay, I have so much to learn. I have, I'm so behind. I have to be thankful to be in this job because I am not even, I'm not big enough or good enough for this job, but this company is good, that still keeps me here. But as I was saying earlier, the newer generation is like, I love myself. I know that I am worthy. I know that I have some talents that, God, depending on what your
Mhm.
religion is, it's like I was born with something of value. And if I go to a performance review and in that performance review, they focus on telling me how much I suck and how bad I am on all these things, and they don't really tell me what I'm good for, then you know what? Life is short. I was born to be happy and I am not afraid, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to find something better. So organizations are
Mhm.
finding
Mhm.
big, turnover, people that are, leaving the organization because
Mhm.
these leaders, these managers of people are giving performance reviews today and performance feedback in the way they were giving it, a couple of decades ago, which was a different way to do it. So today, I mean, I don't have the statistics in my hand right now, but a lot of research says that, it's like over three-fourths of people will leave within a year of receiving a
Yeah.
performance review where they did not feel appreciated. And it makes sense because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I may not be as good as I will be or can be in the future,
Mhm.
but I'm giving, working all these hours. I am, putting all this time. So it's like whether I'm good at it or not, that's one
Mhm.
point. But I want to
Right.
be recognized and thanked, and the
Mm.
money and the compensation, because the leaders in the past, it's like, what do you think? I'm thanking you because I'm giving you a check. I'm depositing money on your account on the 1st and the 15th, right? Every couple
Right.
of
Or
weeks,
every 2 weeks.
I'm paying you, so that I'm thanking you. In fact, I have to share this with you. Interesting.
Mhm.
When I started in corporate America, and I started to receive, executive coaching, one of the things that I was coached on by multiple people is, do not thank the people reporting to you. So I have multiple people convincing
Oh.
me, telling me that I should not thank the employees that were working for me, because we were already thanking them by paying them. It's like they're
Oh,
doing their job. Like, why
wow.
would you thank somebody that is just
Yeah.
doing their job? And although I
Mm.
was coachable, I was open to feedback, and I got a lot of
Right.
coaching. And I changed many things because of the great feedback that I received. That was one
Absolutely. I
piece of
mean,
feedback that I rebelled against, and I did
mm,
not follow that one, because in my heart I was convinced that if you look at human behavior, if you look at the way that we operate as
gratitude.
human beings, the power of gratitude, we need to be thanked, and we have to thank other people, even when they are doing a job that they are being
Mhm.
paid for. Because if you don't do, imagine a life. So
Mhm.
if I follow the feedback that I was given, the coaching that I was given,
Right.
that particular piece, then I would go to a restaurant and I would not thank the waiter or the
Yeah.
waitress because they're being paid for that. I go to a hotel, I wouldn't say
Mhm.
thank to the person in the counter. I wouldn't say
Right.
thank to the Uber driver. I wouldn't say thanks to anybody, right? It's like, everybody's
That says
doing
a
their
lot
job.
about a person too. I've noticed how they treat their servers, how they treat the person at the front desk, just everybody, anybody that's helping them or assisting them. Uh, People forget that people are watching, and if you observe that, you're going to learn a lot about a person on that human centeredness of what they really are. Because anybody can be polished. Well, not anybody, but a lot of people can fake it a little bit for a while. But that's if you really want to learn somebody, see them angry, see them react to sadness, challenges, the whole gamut.
Exactly. So going back to your question of what makes a great leader, one of the things
Mhm.
that makes a great leader is gratitude. So is
Mhm.
appreciating. So is being a good observer, to observe and learn more. Have the curiosity to
Mhm.
learn about things in general, but to learn about your team members, the
Mhm.
work that they are doing, and then to appreciate that the work that they are doing, and then to be thankful to them even when they are being paid. And it's actually,
Yeah.
so the one of the things in emotional intelligence that we study is something called it's called what is it called, it's emotional expression, level of emotional expression. But it's basically the ability that you have to express, like your
Mhm.
emotions. So there is a cultural level to
Mhm.
that, there's a generational layer to
Right.
that. So for example, in countries like Japan, let's say, Japan as an example, and some Asian countries, South Korea, Germany, they tend to have a lower emotional expression, or level of emotional expression. What
Mhm.
what that means is that you won't have a Japanese that is like, oh, like the smiling and laughing and hugging
Charismatic
you and
and
kissing you. It's like, no, they are trained to be more stoic. So in the Japanese
stoic.
culture, as an example, right, people associate, if you have like, if you're stoic, then you are seen as very highly educated, whereas if you're moving your hands and your
Mhm.
arms and
Mhm.
you're making a lot of noise and stuff like that, then you are
Or a
perceived
hothead.
as being lower education. So whereas in other
Interesting.
parts of the world, like in South America, where I come from, right,
Right.
those countries, so South America, some countries in Africa, right, we tend to have, in countries in South Europe, Southern Europe, for example, Spain, France, Portugal, we have a higher emotional expression, which means is that, so Latinos, we're like the Italians, we speak with our hands and stuff, and
Right. Kind of
we
like a
raise our voice.
Scandinavian.
Yeah, it's like that, so when so when he says, oh, I was talking to, like, a Colombian, we
Mhm.
were talking about this business. And but the
Right.
person started to raise their voice and was moving their hands. So it's like,
Mhm.
no, that means that the conversation was going really well, because that means the person was excited. It means they wanted to sign the contract. But
Oh.
anyway,
Mhm.
so one of the things is about understanding, these differences. And if you are, and we're seeing with with the world being global, we're seeing more and more movements. So we're taking leaders from one country, sending them to another, and all that. So, for example, when you were talking about like when you were asking me about what makes a
Right.
great leader, another characteristic of a great leader, and I was talking about this ability to observe, to understand, have like social awareness, understanding what's going around you, is this
Mhm.
idea, what is called cross-cultural leadership, is that I have the patience and the time and the understanding and the curiosity to observe another culture and see, how what's the
Mhm.
system, right? How do things get done and communicated here? Because if I am German, if I am Japanese, and I am doing a great job, and they
Yeah.
send me to lead a team in Brazil, well,
Mhm.
I need to get to Brazil and observe kind of what's the culture. Because if I operate in Brazil in the same way that I operate in Japan, that probably is not going to go really well. Because
Right.
Brazilians, for a Brazilian to feel valued,
Mhm.
liked, respected, and all that, you need to express, So for example, gratitude, we need to also be communicated not only in words,
Right.
but in expression, in actions, in writing. So if you were to speak in a very stoic mode, in Latin America, in
Right.
Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina,
Mm.
you will be perceived as indifferent. It's like, well, this guy
Right.
doesn't care, or this woman doesn't care. Actually, they've been doing some jokes with the World Cup, right? With the soccer game, is they
Yeah.
actually they're playing how the game is. The MCs that are like
Yes, I've noticed that.
narrating the game. So they
Yep.
put the differences of how the game is being narrated in the different countries, right? So
Mm.
imagine Latin America. So in some countries, like, oh, that was a goal. It's like,
Right.
the English team has just scored a goal, and that's it. Whereas in Latin America,
Right.
it's like, oh my God, it's everybody there, right?
Right.
That is a cultural thing, and we
It
need so
totally is.
yeah.
Yes, interesting. So, for those who are tuning in, we have Luis Moreno, and above this video, we go out to multiple platforms, is information on everything we're talking about, but most importantly, his website. If you're looking to learn, just quick order his book, or you want to hire him to be a speaker or a trainer for your corporation. He's also a professor at the University of Minnesota, and you want it maybe to take one of his classes. That is a good way to reach out to him. And in fact, I want to switch gears to your book, Today's Inspired Leaders Stories of Impact, Community, and Legacy. And of course, then once we get into that, because I want you to tell me about it, then we'll switch gears into the whole empathy and compassion piece of it as well. But tell us about the book.
Yeah, so Jacqueline Ruiz is an
Hmm.
author who has been, I think she's written 39 books,
Oh,
right? Which
wow.
we didn't
Good
think
for
that a
her.
person can read so many books can write so many books in their life.
Right.
But she writes multiple books
Wow.
every year.
Okay.
And one of the books that she publishes is this, it's a leadership book series
Hmm.
that is called Today's Inspire Leaders. And it's very
Oh,
beautiful work, because what she does is she identifies between 10 and 15 leaders every year that she, learns about. And then so she reaches out to those leaders and says, would love to, feature you and have your story. And so what ends up being is a compilation of personal and professional leadership stories. So I was in the sixth volume, right? So six times, so
okay.
6 by 15 or 14,
Hmm.
so 6 by 10.
Yes.
So at least 60, around 60, 70 leaders. Uh, Sorry, have been featured, and it's actually a really nice, inspiring book, because one of the things is that the book encourages you to be open, to be honest, to be humble, to be vulnerable. And so just kind
Mhm.
of open up your heart. Is that a lot of the leaders that, I would say, the leaders that are featured in this leadership book series, they've already earned a certain recognition and stuff. And so they're like, oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you how, what happened
Right.
in my life and stuff, because
Right.
I'm feeling good with where I am right now. So once you read, so you have, let's say in the volume 6, there are 14 leaders, right?
Mhm.
14 contributing authors, and each one of them writes one chapter. So when you read their chapter, it's very humbling and it's very inspiring, because they will say, so it's kind of the stories of bottom to top, right? Like, I was homeless, I mean, I'm making this up, but
Right,
I
right.
was both, one of my parents or both my parents, died or something. It's catastrophes that happen in their life for real, obviously, and it's just by reading those, it tells you, oh my gosh, like, if this person was able to do that, and it just gives
Yeah.
you the message and the confidence that you really can. There is a phrase in Spanish. So for anyone watching this that also speaks Spanish, I've never found a way to translate it to English very well. But in Spanish, there's a phrase that says, "Se puede estar muy bien después de haber estado muy mal," which is something equivalent to, you can be in a really good spot after being in a really bad spot. Doesn't
Yeah.
sound very good in English, doesn't translate well,
No,
but
it does. It does because
yeah,
we say
it's
that
like
all the
believe
time.
it. You can be on
Nothing
the
stays
bottom, and
bad
you can.
forever. Nothing stays great forever. And you can, that's why you need to just keep going.
Keep
Everybody's
going.
been through hard and messy things. And if they haven't,
Yes,
it's coming.
exactly. Yes. So
Right.
I think, for anyone that likes to read a book, and if you're interested, if you get this book, Today's Inspire Leader, is on Amazon. It's volume 6, by volume 6, which is the one where I am now. When you read
Absolutely.
these chapters and stories, because I've read the stories from my co-authors, and
Mm,
it's really inspiring. It makes you pause and
mhm.
think, wow. And it's beautiful too, the things that people do for the people that they love. I mean, there are stories there of mothers that
Right.
have done amazing things for their children,
Yeah.
and just things that people that have done things for their parents, for siblings, for relatives. And so it
Mhm.
inspires you in, wow, these are examples of how
Mhm.
we can leverage love and the power of love to live
Right.
a life of purpose, to have a positive impact in this world. So it
Mm.
can be touching, and it can be heartwarming,
Yeah.
to see the humanity in people. So it's a beautiful book. I recommend, anybody watching, go get a copy and read it.
Mhm.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah, and it's yes, because when we follow people on social media, they tell you what they want you to see,
Yeah,
and the positive, you don't get to see the behind the scenes.
right.
And in fact, this kind of we sort of started. You mentioned these two words, and I was wanted to go there, but this actually is more of a natural progression there. What is empathy, and is it the same as compassion?
Great question. I love that question. You know
Yeah.
that I get that question all the time.
Yep.
So, actually, empathy is a very complex thing, more complex than people realize. So we could speak, for hours. It would take the
Mhm.
whole
Right.
show just to speak
Right.
about empathy. But I would
And I
just
have a
say
lot of questions for you. So.
something that people don't know is that empathy has three components. So the great
Mhm.
leader, the pioneer in emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, the person that I have my certifications with,
Mhm.
he discovered something very fascinating, that empathy had three internal elements, right?
Mhm.
And so the first two parts, which are called emotional empathy, is what most people understand by, when they think of empathy, they're thinking of emotional empathy, which is to understand what somebody else may be feeling, right? May have felt
Mhm.
in the past, may be feeling now, may feel in the future as a result of a certain stimuli. Then there is something called cognitive empathy, right? Which is
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
ability to try to understand your thinking process, why you're thinking, what you're thinking, right? And that's a
Mhm.
very important kind of empathy, because it's, for example, let's say in the political world, let's suppose
Mhm.
that you support a certain movement, I support another movement.
Mhm.
So let's say, for example, how do you know that somebody has cognitive empathy or not, right? Or high
Right.
level of cognitive empathy or a low level of cognitive empathy? If there is an election, let's say that there is a political election, a presidential
Mhm.
election, and there's option A and option B, and I think that option A should win, and I vote for option A. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, there's no discussion here. Option A is the absolute winner.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to be voting for option A. And when the
Right.
results come out, option B wins.
Mhm.
So a person who has a low level of cognitive empathy will react something like this. What? Oh my gosh, I'm surprised. This has to be a mistake. This is
Right.
shocking. I can't understand how. I don't know. I'm at a loss here. And that's a person with a low level of cognitive empathy. A person with a high level of cognitive empathy would react by saying, Okay, I got it. I'm disappointed that that person or that
Right.
option won, but I can see why. I understand why that option would win because I have the ability to
Right.
understand the thinking of the people that would choose that option and
Mhm.
say, like, oh, I'm making this up, but for example, oh, I get it. Like, so let me look at the profile of the people that voted for that candidate. Oh, there are people of certain age, of certain race, of certain socioeconomic status that live in
Yes.
certain parts of the country. And you think to yourself, say, okay, if I was of that age, if I was part of that, socioeconomic
Mhm.
status, if I lived in those, if I had those religion, if I had that kind of thinking, I would vote for that candidate too. I don't because I
Right.
don't have those. So anyway, so that's emotional empathy and cognitive empathy. And there is a very important element that is called, so it's different experts refer to in different ways, but it can be called empathetic concern or empathic concern or compassion empathy or simply compassion. So compassion or
Mhm.
compassion empathy is the element of empathy that has to do with the motivation that we have to do something for somebody to help them reduce whatever pain or suffering
Mhm.
they are experiencing. And this is important because the
Mhm.
first two components of empathy, emotional empathy and cognitive empathy, do not include doing anything for anybody. This is just understanding
Oh,
how somebody feels and how somebody thinks, but it stops there. The ability to feel the motivation to want to do something to help somebody is a different component of empathy that is called compassion. So,
interesting.
for example, let's think about this. Maybe
Yep.
I am out on the street and I
Mhm.
see a homeless person, for
Mhm.
example, on the
Mhm.
street. Somebody that is like asking somebody say, "Oh, can you give me some money? I need to eat." Okay, if you have emotional empathy, you are able to understand that what that person is feeling. They are feeling pain. They are
Right.
feeling, sadness, worry, all that, right? If I have cognitive empathy, I understand. Oh, okay, I see. I can see how they're thinking. They're asking me for money because they're thinking that I'm going to help them with the money, and they think, well,
Mhm.
since I cannot work by myself, I'm going to ask other people.
Mhm.
So I understand the thinking process of that person. But if I only had emotional empathy and cognitive empathy, I will stop there and keep walking and go and leave the person there without any help. The only reason what would motivate me to actually either give them money or food or something or have a word for them, a word of kindness, would be the third element of empathy that is called empathetic concern or empathic concern or compassion, empathy, or compassion.
Mhm.
So only
Mhm.
compassion will move you to do an action to help a person that is experiencing pain or suffering. Long
Well,
answer.
and Well, no, and ironically, so Sue Gravel, who is actually a pastor and also my cousin, wrote, and she's so right. Stories are so powerful and can inspire and connect us in so many ways. And her and I will have various conversations about everything of the gamut and bring in both cognitive and emotional empathy, but also we're both compassionate. So we're always, in fact, we'll joke. Sometimes we'll be trying to think of we'll joke we're trying to solve the world's problems, and we can be on the phone for hours trying to do that and think of ways because we're so compassionate that we'll do it, and then we get off and here we are 2 hours later or an hour later, and it's like we're
Uh,
exhausted because we stayed up too late, and then we're thinking, did we even solve anything?
yeah.
That's our compassion of
And that's
trying
an
to help people.
important reflection because sometimes people ask, this concept can sometimes be complicated and people get, stuck. And then so they'll say, well, but like, I don't understand. How can somebody have emotional empathy and not have compassion? And it is possible. In
Mhm.
fact, it is so possible that, for example, for some people, have high levels of emotional empathy and cognitive empathy, but and they
Mhm.
don't have empathetic concern. So they actually use. So what happens when somebody has high levels of emotional empathy and cognitive empathy, but they don't have a high level of compassion? Is that they can leverage the information that they have through emotional empathy and cognitive empathy against you. And so people is
Oh,
like, I don't understand.
manipulative.
Well, for
Yeah.
example, if I am a bad politician, I'm going to go out to speak to the people in the community. I'm going to do surveys. I'm going to talk with them because I want to hear what
Mhm.
is it that they are feeling, what do they need,
Mhm.
what do they want and all that. So with my high level of emotional empathy, I
Mhm.
am learning how they feel. And with my high level of cognitive empathy, I am learning how they think. So I can predict how they would vote, for example, because I know
Mhm.
how they're thinking. So they're
Mhm.
thinking, if a candidate were to help me with these things, I would vote for them. So now that I have that information through emotional empathy and cognitive empathy, I have been able to extract all that information. Then I use that information. I prepare my speech. I write my speech to speak back to those people, right? To use the, basically, it's like, oh,
Right.
for example, people say, oh, we're very interested in housing. Well, guess what I'm going to do? In my speeches, I'm going to talk about housing. Oh, because
Right.
housing is very important. I'm going to give you housing. And once they vote for me and I get elected, that's when I'm going to need to have the compassion, empathy. But if I don't have it, basically I
Mhm.
say, well, thank you for electing me. Now I go on with my own agenda and I do whatever I want. And I forget about what you want, which unfortunately many politicians do, right? So then
Right. They
it
sure
is
do.
completely possible to and you can see it in relationship. I'm not a I'm
Mhm.
not a like a
Mhm.
therapist, like a marriage counselor or anything like that, but I mean there are people who experience, so for
Right.
example, let's say that you have been living, I'm just gonna say gender, this is an example. So for example, you're a woman and you married to a man, you've been married to a man for a long time, and that man now knows everything about you. They know how you feel, how
Right.
you think, they've used their emotional empathy and cognitive empathy to understand you, how you think and how you
Right.
feel. And then they're going to use that to manipulate you because now they know kind of how, what's the, right. So let's say, for example, now they know, let's suppose that they have children together, and
Mhm.
now that for that woman their
Mhm.
children is the most important thing from an emotional standpoint. Well, guess what
Right.
they're going to do? So they may, in some cases, unfortunately, you have cases where a man will use the children to manipulate the woman, right, to obtain whatever they want. So that's an
Mhm.
example of people with levels of, high levels or good levels of emotional
Right.
empathy and cognitive empathy, and not having a good level of compassion. So
Well, and
there.
I've seen it in both men and women, and in fact, that is actually leads me to my next question. Who makes better leaders, men or women?
I love that question. Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a very controversial question,
Very.
but something I have great news for all women listening to this show is that in many decades ago, women were discouraged from being leaders because the thought was that a leader, because we were thinking about
Mhm.
characteristics of leadership that had to do, with these very masculine,
Mhm.
characteristics. Like they thought leaders needed to be driven, needed to be confident,
Mhm.
needed to be firm, strong, this and that. And a lot of those adjectives that were used, a lot of people associated them more with masculine characteristics. So when when you start to describe a leader, people would visualize a man, right? So for many years back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and all that, a lot of companies, leaders were only men. But the
Right.
newer research over the past few decades, more and more new research has identified that there are characteristics in women that
Mhm.
have to do with, so for example, there are some women that choose to be mothers. The process of being a mother, if you care for others, for parents, for loved ones, for elders, you
Mhm.
develop some, human abilities, have to do with empathy, have to do with compassion. And
Right.
these human abilities have to do with, the empathy to understand how other people in your team feel, to care, to be caring, right? And so the
Mhm.
research is learning more and more how these characteristics that are not masculine, are not, it's not about being strong,
Right.
authoritative, driven, but it's
Right.
about being kind, about being,
Thank you.
human. It's about being, and
Yeah.
the importance of those elements, nurturing and all that. In also, something very
Mhm.
important is that in the past, people were like, okay, I need a job. I need to pay my bills. I need, so I
Yeah.
have toxic bosses. I have a boss that explodes on me. He
Mhm.
screams at me, yells at me, but I
Temper.
need a job. I got to take one for the
Yep.
team. So, and so a lot of men were able to get away with that because people had to tolerate that, right? But
Right.
today, with a newer generation, we're talking about a new population that knows about self-love, and they're being more compassionate, even generous with themselves, to think, okay, life is short. I don't deserve to be
Right.
abused by anybody, neither
Right.
at home nor at work and all that. So then
Yes.
they are looking for a place where they feel good and they have psychological safety. And
Mhm.
more research is talking about psychological safety is achieved when you have people that you can trust, that you feel, well, these people have my
Mhm.
back and all that. So
Mhm.
the nurturing characteristics that tend to be more associated with females are growing and growing in importance. So more and more people are thinking about the need to increase so change the mix, because in the past it was like
Right.
90% of leaders were men with one woman here and there. And now
Right.
more and more organizations are actively looking to bring women into their team, not only because, oh, we need to have a woman for the picture, but
Mhm.
because the research is demonstrating that those characteristics, or many characteristics that are more innate and natural to women because of the way that they are raised, the way, be mothers,
Mhm.
because of the role that they may have
Mhm.
in society, develops in them some
Interesting.
characteristics that are bringing positive elements into the workplace that help with psychological safety, and with people's interest and desire to stay
Mm.
longer in certain organizations. So very complex question, very difficult and
Yes.
controversial question, but there's a long answer to that.
Well, and for me, and we've talked a lot about it offline too, but I have a lot of great female mentors, leaders, coaches throughout the world in Minnesota. But the one company that I just talked about, where I was just flowing out, one of the things I loved about them is everybody, male and female, I felt like a family. I mean, like they very much did care about each other and those of us who are there. And I was previously, from like last August, September to about Marchish, I was working with some women in the corporate world, and most of them didn't live here. And in fact, the ones who didn't live here, I'm still in touch with. They still check on me. Some of the most amazing performers, leaders of women I've ever met. And when I first got into the corporate world, or first got into business and starting my own business, people would say, "Oh, you got to be careful of women in business. It's men that you can trust." I'm thankful that in my consulting piece of it, I always get to choose who I work with. And I've been blessed with the relationships. Well, look that's how we met during COVID. My company was able to produce 52 live streams. Who would have ever thought? And people were just poo-pooing live streams until COVID. And that's how we met. One of the events you wanted to do that was normally in
Yes.
person, we did the live stream for that. And so through you, I met, you're a great leader, and I was able to meet some of the females that you're with too. But so I find it interesting that
Yeah.
Minnesota can have, and I know there's good leaders here, but I find sometimes for the females, it's out of state.
Yeah. No, and that, so absolutely. And, I mean, again, this is not about like, who's better, men or women. That I actually, it's a
Yeah.
funny story. So I always put like, so for anybody watching this, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, you want to follow me, please follow me on LinkedIn. One of the things that I used to have fun on LinkedIn is to do polls, right? So I do polls on
Oh,
LinkedIn.
right.
And I check the analytics to see kind of, and I've noticed over time that whenever I ask a gender related question that compares men and women, that has the highest engagement, right? So if you look at my profile, you'll see that I ask a lot of questions about like men versus women,
Yeah.
because that has, the analytics are through the roof. And one day, this has happened multiple times, that I have asked that question where it has to do with layer, and people either reply to the thing and say, so actually, that, so I had in my class at the
Mhm.
at the university, I brought a woman as a guest speaker, and
Yep.
she was great, spoke really well. She was a hit. Everybody loved her. And in her speaking, she talked about, like, men and women, right? And then she used the phrase something along the lines of, well, there is the myth out there that men make better bosses, right? And I heard that soundbite. I thought, well, this is cool. I can use that
Right.
because in the conversation people disagree, people say no,
Oh,
I not
absolutely.
the case, make men don't make better bosses, but it stuck in my mind. So sorry, when I got home, I did the LinkedIn post and I said, so it was like, so for example, blank make better bosses, something like, I don't remember how it was
Mhm.
structured, but something like that. Blank make better bosses, and then the options you have men or women, right? So people
Right.
have to choose men or women. uh, and somebody wrote, you know, wrote like something. The person was upset because that it was criticizing me, that I was. The person thought that the reason why I was doing that was because I wanted to make the point that men were better than women. But what the person didn't know, the
Oh.
person didn't know me. The person didn't know that I don't think that way. I am actually an advocate for women. A lot of my students are female students, are
Mhm.
young adult, girls. And interestingly enough, that because the person says, the person wrote it at the beginning when the survey started, and say, yeah, because when you get the results, it's going to say that men are better than women, but that's because, and explain all the reasons why that result was going to be wrong. When in fact, when the results came in, what won was that women make better bosses. And I said, thank you
Interesting.
very much for your engagement. I appreciate
Yeah.
it, and this and that. But somehow the person thought that I was, wanting to put women down, when in fact that was not at all. It's like I've never thought that
Yeah,
way.
no, I've never and I've worked with you on and off for a long time, and I've been lucky. I've had both amazing female bosses and amazing male bosses and mentors, and still do today, and, um, for those people, not everybody is born with the inherent traits to be a leader, and some of it can be taught, but some of it not. What can people do to improve, though, as a leader?
Great question. Thank you. Great questions tonight. I mean, I would say the one thing is to work on self awareness. So there
Mhm.
is a crisis of self awareness. When you ask people about themselves, they're like, "Oh, I'm amazing. Give me a weakness that you have." Well, I'm a perfectionist and stuff. But it really, self awareness takes, you have to be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
You have to be brave to take the risk of, reflecting about yourself, and then also
Mhm.
asking others for feedback. Go to people that love
Yes.
you, go to your employees, to your teammates, go to your reports and say, hey, like, I am looking for honest feedback. I'll give you
Mhm.
permission. Hit me with
Yes.
candor, and like say
And
it,
then be ready for it when they do
and then
to
be ready for it and take it, and don't be defensive. And then go to your spouse and say, what kind of spouse I am. Go to your significant
Mhm,
other, go to your children and ask them, what kind of parent am I being. Go to your, go
mhm,
to your neighbors and say, tell me what kind of neighbor I am being. And allow for people that I just, I was part of a selection committee at the University of Minnesota, and the leader of it, so the selection committee has a leader who did an amazing job. And she sent me a note, which I suspect she sent it to everybody in the selection committee, and said, please, I want to be a great leader. The person worded it that way. I'm working hard
mhm,
on improving as a leader, so I would love your feedback. Tell me. And
mhm,
I wrote it, and I thought she was amazing. And I say, oh, here's what I think this is not. And then I say, hey, here's a thought for opportunity, something that you could do better. And the person responded with grace, with kindness, with
mm.
and say, oh, thank you very much. I agree. I'm going to work on that and this and that. I was like, that's amazing. I would,
Yes, when they're receptive.
if everybody did that. And I said to a person, here, I would like the favor back. Can you tell me about me? I wasn't the leader of the thing, but what do you think about me? And the person wrote a very well written note with, here are your points, very this, here's
Mhm,
the good, the
mhm.
bad, the ugly, boom, boom, boom. So imagine how the world would be if we
Yes.
were giving everybody, honest feedback, and that we open our hearts to it. But anyway,
Right.
the answer to your question is work on self-awareness. If you are brave enough to ask for feedback, and to think about it, and sit with it, and
Mhm.
consider it and reflect on it, if you act on the feedback, feedback is a
Right,
gift, and I write
right.
about it in the book. So for those of you that get a copy of the book, you'll see that I write about it in the book. In fact, I have to tell you this. So
Yes.
in the book, so one of the nice things about writing a book is that then people who read it, will reach out to you to tell you something about the book. And I wrote in the book, in my chapter, a section of it, I dedicated it to feedback. And I was writing
Mhm.
in the book what I am saying to you now, right? Same
Mhm.
idea. And I've gotten multiple people saying, because I say in the book, feedback is a gift.
It
I encourage
is.
you to go ask for feedback, this and that. So multiple people have said, and so two things. I talk about feedback both, ask for it and receive it, and I also encourage people to give feedback
Yeah.
to people, right? Because you have to learn how to give feedback, to do it with grace. So
Yeah.
every day we look at somebody that we work with or that we know that we interact with, and we think in our heads of ways of how that person could be better, more effective, and all that. But we never tell those people that because we don't
Right.
want to offend anybody, we don't want to hurt anybody, we don't
Be
want to make
abrasive
anybody
or
feel
too direct or yeah.
right. So, unfortunately, those thoughts that you have on how those people could be better could make those people better, but those opportunities are lost because you're never going to tell them. So, in the book, I
Yeah.
encourage people that to say, hey, so for example, you, Carla, you and I, we worked for multiple years. You know that there's respect between the two of
Mhm.
us. So, for example, I now feel completely comfortable to say, hey, Carla, look, in our show today, there was, I love to share a perspective with you of a thought that I had during the show that I think can make your show better. You know that I mean well
Right.
and that I want the best for you, blah, blah, blah. And then kind of give you the right setup and all that, and say, hey,
Yep.
and if you give it with respect, with dignity,
Yes.
with kindness, with the right time, the right moment, and all that, many people will take it well, and they will be thankful to that.
Yes.
So that has been, I learned now that one of the things that I wrote in the book that has had the most impact
Is
was
that
my section on feedback. And wait, so in that section about feedback, one of the things that I wrote about regarding self-awareness is this
Mhm.
notion, which I say to my students in the class, is who we think we are is not only who we are is not only who we think we are, but
Mhm.
also what other people think of who we are is also part of who we are. So that's a crazy concept because people
Ah.
say, no, absolutely not. Who I am is who I think I am, and what other people think about me doesn't matter because it's like, okay, here's your performance review. Everybody in finance, they hate you. They think that you are not. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, there's people in finance like they don't know me, that they
Mhm.
don't. If they really knew me, well,
Right.
excuse me, what those people in finance think is part of who you are because that's how they are experiencing you, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
matter how you see yourself because we all are biased and we have a
Right.
good perception of ourselves. Like if you ask me, I
Right.
think I'm amazing. But if I thought, right, imagine if I live my life thinking that everybody is going to assess me and
Right.
evaluate me in the same way that I evaluate myself. So that's a problem. And we see it when we go to leaders and we ask them, hey, how are things going? They say, oh, things are going really well. Things are amazing. And then when we ask their reports, when we ask
Right.
their teams, what they answer does not
Mhm.
match what the leader is thinking. So there is a disconnect between
Yes.
how the leader thinks, or, maybe you ask an elected official, right, at
Mhm.
any level, a mayor, a governor, a president of any country, you ask them, how are things going in your country? They're going to say, amazing. The country
Right.
is better than ever, and this and that. But if you ask the citizens, it's like, why would people vote for a different candidate to, change
Mhm.
government when
Mhm.
that person that was serving thought that things were going really well? Is because there was a disconnect between what
Right.
that, person was thinking, that elected official was thinking, and what the people that they were serving thought.
Right. Question to something you said, because I have had a mentor since, gosh, the early 90s. And one of the things he's always told me, and some of it is when you're in television and just I've always been in situations where that can be very judgmental. You're
Yes,
always going to have whether they call them the haters or whatever.
yes,
And he
absolutely.
has always told me that what other people think of you is none of your business. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't, because
I
so
didn't
there is
think
stuff here.
so.
You can be listening to everybody and stuff, and you can be liked by everybody. There are people that are not gonna
Right.
like you and all that and that.
Right.
But I think that what people think of you does matter, and what people think of you can help you be better. I write
Absolutely.
about that in the book. In that, so for
I
example,
yeah, I thought you
let's
would say that.
say,
That's why I asked.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the a joke, but when you say to someone like in their performance review or in their like 360
Right.
assessment, it's like, hey, Peter, I have to tell you, you're coming across, some of your peers are bringing it up, so we talk to different peers separately, right? And they all coincided and brought up that
Hmm.
you are arrogant. And it's like,
Right.
what? Who? Arrogant? Me? No, absolutely not. I am the least arrogant person in the world. You're never gonna find someone in the whole planet that is less arrogant than me, right? So it's a thing
Hmm.
about, it's like perception. It's like in that person's mind, right? It's like I'm not
Hmm.
arrogant, but your attitude, the way that you're going about it, or the other
Right.
is like, so it's excitable, right? So when you go up, when you're moving up in senior leadership, there are roles where people want you to be more predictable, and you can be excitable, because excitable is, so being excited is a positive thing. You want to be excited, you want to be
Right.
live and have a good vibe,
Energy. Yeah.
energetic and all that. But when you are moving into a C-suite position, we're looking for stability. So we're looking for people that are more established, polished
Yeah.
than that, because you don't want to be fearful of a surprise, right? So
Right.
then the level of excitability, you want it to be lower, because you want people to be more predictable. So then when
Good
you
point.
go to somebody that is kind of moving up through leadership, and they're going into a C-suite role, and you're like, well, that is people are uh, or they take an assessment, and then you say, hey, in this excitability, right, scale,
Hmm.
you're coming to, it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? It's like, no, I'm not excited. Like, I'm not excitable. Why are you saying that? And it's a thing
Right.
of perception, is that you see even in the behavior of a person that it confirms what the other people are saying, but the person does not see it that way. So in this case,
Hmm.
what I do is like, hey, look, as an example,
Right.
what you just did, that is a sign of excitability. So anyway, it's about, so the long answer to your question is that I think it is important what people think about us. And one,
Hmm.
an exercise, for example, that I encourage other people, and I do it myself, is that when someone sees you in a certain way, when someone experiences you in a certain way,
Hmm.
it could be, I mean, maybe the person doesn't have all the information about you and all that, but
Right.
it gives you an opportunity to think about, okay, what could it have been? What did I do? What did I
Yeah.
say? What did I,
What could I
what
have
kind of
done different?
what could
Yeah.
I have done differently? But
Hmm.
also, it's like, what could I have done that may have led that person to perceive me in
Yeah.
that way, right? So then,
Yeah.
because for example, and you can ask, if somebody were to tell you, hey, you know what, Carla, you are arrogant. It's like, hey, first take, swallow, right? It's like, okay,
Right.
breathe, a little bit of meditation here in yoga,
Right.
and go to person and say, oh, tell me more about it. It's, oh, why do you think that I'm arrogant? And then open up your ears and listen, because
Hmm.
the person may say, hey, when you're consistently talking about the fact that your parents this, or that your husband whatever, or whatever,
Right.
or that you travel, and then because it helps you to understand and say, okay, oh, how interesting. I never thought that by
Yeah.
speaking about this one thing. So let's say, for example, I grew up in a certain part of town, like, oh, I grew up in, Minnetonka, Edina, or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I'm constantly saying that in my mind. It's like, well, that's where I grew up. It's like, I don't see any
Hmm.
problem with that. But where if I ask people, say, well, why do you think that? Well, you're consistently saying this thing, then it gives you an opportunity
Right.
to reflect on that and say, oh, I get it. Me being saying this all the time. So for I actually I have an example to that. So I worked in one of the companies that I worked was a very
Yep.
fast learning company, where people were, this company hired the smartest people, really, really smart people that went to Ivy League schools and all that, and people learn very fast. And the perception and the expectation of people were that they needed to learn very fast, because this was an organization of fast learners.
Right.
And one of the ways that they would do that, it was that you would have roles. You would be in a role only for 1 year, in some instances for 6 months. And
Wow.
and people were expecting that in that 1 year, in that 6 months, you already
Right.
made a difference and everything, which is hard to do, right?
Hmm.
So I remember that some people were given like the feedback of, for example, oh, you're not learning as fast. You're not a fast learner, right? You're like a slow learner.
Right.
And it's like, well, why do you say that? And then
Right.
so in that particular example, I said, okay, tell me more about that, Carla. Why are you thinking that?
Yep.
What makes you think? Well, and I remember in that time is that people would say, oh, because I've only been here for 6 months. So that phrase,
Oh,
if you
right.
say, oh, I don't know as much about that, because I've been here only for 6 months, you kill yourself, just by saying that phrase.
Right.
That was the end of your, because in
Oh,
those
absolutely.
people's mind, 6 months was enough time for you to have learned the business and have started already to provide, like, because it was like a consulting mindset, and consultants learn very fast, right? So
Right.
6 months.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Yep.
think about if you're working in a consulting, typical consulting company
Mhm.
like the big ones, McKinsey and stuff. It's like, if you need 6 months to start learning about an organization, so you can't have a job
Right.
here because we need you to learn very fast. So anyway,
Exactly.
as an example, so you have to watch for what are the things that you're saying, because that's affecting how people perceive you.
Right. Well, and we've been on an hour and 15 minutes, and I've tried to cover most of your questions. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you really want our viewers to know?
One thing, I would just encourage for everybody that is watching this is that we can all be better. We're good people, we're
Mhm.
good leaders. We're doing the
Mhm.
best. Oh, we're trying to do the best we can, but we can be better and do better. And I encourage all of you to, so tonight we talked about self-awareness, we talked about feedback, we talked about, reflection, empathy, compassion. So I'm telling you, every one of you watching this, is that by increasing your level of emotional intelligence through
Mhm.
empathy, self-awareness, right, social awareness components that we talked about tonight, relational
Mhm.
skills, you can increase your effectiveness as a leader, and you can also become a better person by being,
Mhm.
having stronger interpersonal social skills, by being more relatable, by being, kinder to
Mhm.
people, more compassionate, and all that. So my encouragement for everyone is listen, if you watch these,
Mhm.
reflect about the things that Carla and I talked about here tonight, and start practicing these things, because I guarantee you that by increasing your level of emotional intelligence, actually, I'm going to finish by saying this, that the high right now, one of the most effective predictors of professional and career success
Mhm.
is actually your level of emotional intelligence. And I'm
Interesting.
going to say that, so here is an advice to everyone watching this: is you can be emotional
Mhm.
or you can be intelligent, but
Right.
the biggest opportunity for
Mhm.
all of us is to be emotionally intelligent. Thank you very
Mhm.
much, Carla, for having me in your show again.
Oh my
Always a
gosh, and we'll
pleasure.
have you back because there's so much more we can talk about
We can
and
talk for hours.
absolutely. And as America's lifestyle and business experts, we have been bringing all of you the best kept secrets, businesses, organizations, and people since 2003. We were actually Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities' longest airing television community
Oh, wow.
showcase, and that wouldn't be possible
Good.
without people like Luis and all of you that have been tuning in and watching from multiple platforms all over the country. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so excited for next Tuesday. I know a friend of yours as well. We're going to be back in the studio kitchen of Amalia Moreno Damgard,
Good.
who is an award winning chef and author. She's a cultural advocate, a business leader. She's from Guatemala, and she'll have something cooking up, literally and
Yes.
figuratively, to share with all of you. So I'm excited. That'll be next Tuesday evening,
I
the
call
20th.
her I call her my prima, which is Spanish for cousin, because
Yes,
we share the same last name. So even
I
though we're not
know.
biological cousins, we call each other cousin,
I
primas.
wondered about that. Yeah, no, and I just love her. She is just fantastic, as are you, Louise. And I'm so grateful for people like you that can share not only your knowledge in business and things like leadership, but also culturally, you bring that to the table too, and that really means a lot. And I know not only my viewers and followers, we've had a lot of people on, and we have been on over hour and almost 20 minutes. So I thank you for that, and I'm excited. Any shout outs before we say goodbye?
Well, shout outs to you. Thank you, Carla, for,
Oh,
besides this show, for being a wonderful, human being, a human centered leader, a wonderful friend.
oh,
And, your job is so important, because the work that you do by featuring people, people out there that are, that have love for the work that they do, and they're trying to impact their communities, and make things better, that you're giving, your platform with so many thousands of followers to help, feature those people, the work that you do is very important. So thank you, Carla, for everything you do. And I look forward to seeing you
oh.
again, continuing the conversation and learning from each other and growing together. Thank you, Carla.
Oh, yes. No, right back at you. And, how ironic that during COVID, I was already doing live streaming. Everyone poo pooed it. But during COVID, it it really came to light. And then for Around Town, people followed us there. And as I've shared to many people, last June of 2025, more people were watching shows through live stream than television. It'll never be that powerhouse that television once was, but this is the platform. This is where we are. We couldn't be here without people like you. So thank you
Well,
again.
we don't want to extend this because we've
I
gone too long, but I was just going to say that they're seeing how, there are some things like gardening and stuff that people
Yeah.
have, more and more people are getting interested in, has to do because it's like the pleasures of life. So your show, that part of your show speaks about, things and hobbies and lifestyles and things
Yeah.
and purpose driven activities and things that people do. And I think that's growing because more and more people want to, make the most of their lives and really live a life of purpose. And your show gives so much information, so many ideas on how to live a life of purpose. So thank you, Carla.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh, John Kelly just wrote, leadership isn't innate. It takes practice and patience. Amen to that, John. Isn't
Okay,
that the
thank you,
truth?
John. Absolutely.
Yes.
Practice is very important.
Well,
And
and
patience.
having you back on after 5 years, I think we need to practice more and have you back on as a regular guest as you're available. So we'll talk about that offline as well.
Thank you,
Sound
Carla.
good?
All
Yes.
right.
And we'll see all of you next Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, right here on Around Town TV Live. We'll see you then. Thank you.